And stay tuned for Focus in the Field happening Saturday, September, not Saturday. I mean, it's over Saturday, but it's not Saturday. Welcome back to another episode of DTF Garage. My name is Brad, and we are here with Project XR2 SuperCoupe. Now, this episode is going to be a little bit different than a couple of our previous ones. I am not currently building anything on the car for this episode. What I'm going to do is actually go a little bit back in time so we can take a look at the history of Project XR2 SuperCoupe, everything I did before I whipped out the video camera and started filming, so you can kind of see where we came from with the beginning of this project. Now, the beginning of this project actually starts with the ending of my old project car, which was a 2002 ZX5 Focus that I did hold very close and dear to my heart. I do still miss that car to this day. I wrecked that car, wow, 4 years ago. My black ZX5 is the car that I originally introduced the Eaton M90 supercharger on from a Thunderbird SuperCoupe. I wanted to do something a little bit different, and that was my way of doing it. I love superchargers. I absolutely love superchargers. I love superchargers. I'm a huge supercharger guy. I think in addition to the one that I actually have on this engine, I have 3 extra superchargers just in my garage. So I'm a supercharger guy, always have been, probably always will be. I've always preferred the supercharger over turbos. You can't beat full boost from 2000 RPM all the way up through your power band. I absolutely love it. And I know you can kind of do the same thing with some turbos if you have a specific turbo setup, and I know a lot of people argue, well, when you're racing, you know, you're constantly in that 6,000 to 7,000 RPM range, which is where turbo is at full boost, you know, so you don't have to worry about that lower power band unless you're starting out. And I get those arguments. I do see the benefits of a turbo over a supercharger in some applications, but for me, I love that supercharger. I love having full boost right when you hit the gas. You can just light them up going from the line. It's such a fun thing to do. My first supercharged car was a 91 Mustang LX convertible with a 5.0 in it. I had a Ken Bell 2.1 liter supercharger on it, and man, that thing was just an absolute blast to drive. Now, back to the black car. There's not much room in the engine bay of a Focus to really stick a supercharger, so I decided with that car that I was going to go ahead and stick it on top of the engine and cut a big old hole in the hood for it to fit. And I'm going to tell you, it looked pretty badass. I loved driving that thing around. Even going through the grocery store parking lot, just everyone would be turning their heads going, what on earth is that? Because you just had this big old blower sticking out of the hood. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I did total that car. I was in the middle of still building it. I did have the supercharger mounted on the engine and the belt on the supercharger. It did spin and work and produce boost. But I didn't have a tune on the car yet. So I had the bypass valve open, so it was just venting the boost off into the atmosphere. It was probably pushing like maybe a pound of boost into the engine, which really wasn't noticeable at all. Yeah. But I didn't have it tuned yet, so I didn't want to run it with full boost, because I did that with my Mustang and I blew a cylinder head gasket before I even got it out of the driveway. So I totaled that car on July 10th, 2016. And I still miss that car every day. About a year later, on July 16th, 2017, I drove from Colorado Springs up to Loveland, Colorado. It was about a 2-hour drive to take a look at a 2000 ZX3 Kona edition. It wasn't in the greatest shape. It was an automatic. It had gone through 2 transmissions. The paint was all faded on it. But it had most of the Kona parts on it. It had the Kona floor mats, the Kona accessory seat covers. It did still have the Kona rack on it as well. The only thing that was actually missing was the Kona bike that originally came with the car. The lady I bought it from had owned the car for about 15 years. She was the second owner, and she purchased it when it was about 6 months old. It only had one owner. She bought it used, only had a few thousand miles on it, and the original owner took the bike with him. So she bought the car originally without the bike. So of course, as soon as I got this car home, I started pulling out boxes and boxes of parts that I had pulled off of the old car that were ready to go on. So I had taillights that I put on this thing immediately, the front RS Collections replica bumper, SVT rear bumper that I had on the old car as well, and the blue SVT seats that were in the black ZX5 as well. Shortly after that, I was able to find a genuine Kaminari wing for the car. They came in 3 versions: fiberglass, half carbon fiber, and fiberglass. These ones had like a carbon fiber insert, and then full carbon fiber. I found the one that was fiberglass with the carbon fiber insert on the top. And then soon after I found that, I also found a Ford accessories mid-wing. And I'd never seen this on any car before. I didn't even know that Ford actually made this mid-wing. I originally saw this in a photo from a Focus at SEMA back in 2003. And I always thought it looked absolutely awesome. But I'd never seen it on a Focus. It was a lot smaller mid-wing than like your Roush and other aftermarket mid-wings that went fully around the side of the car. It was quite a bit smaller. It was more subtle, and I really liked the way it looked. I didn't realize until I was going through my catalog at work that Ford actually did offer it as an accessory. So when I originally started buying parts for the motor that I had pulled out of the black car, I got low compression 8-to-1 pistons. After I think about a week of having those, I started thinking about it more and changed my mind and decided that I wanted to go with a high compression boost build. Not super high, but higher than stock, higher than the 9.9-to-1. I sent a message back to Carl at Massive Speed System, and he was more than happy to help me out. So I sent back the SuperTech 8-to-1 compression pistons and swapped them out for the 10.6-to-1 compression pistons. 10.6 was a little higher than I wanted to go, so when I did build the engine, I ended up putting a SVT head gasket on it, spaced it out just a little bit more, so it's going to bring it back down to about 10.2-to-1 compression, so just a little over 10. And I still had the supercharger off of the old car as well. I had a little bit of a scratch on top since the car did flip upside down, but aside from that very, very small scratch, it really had no damage on the supercharger, so I was able to reuse that as well. I decided with this car that I was going to call it the XR2 SuperCoupe, so I went ahead and ordered some custom XR2 SuperCoupe emblems and had those match the custom SVT gauges that I made for this project as well that also said XR2 SuperCoupe on them. I did do custom printing and a custom background on those gauges. They do light up a blue, which is pretty cool, and they are installed and fully functioning on a non-SVT car. If you want the wiring write-up for that, I have it down in the link below. Not too long after that, I started building the engine for the car. So I took my engine, the old engine block, to Gunn Automotive Performance in Denver. They went through, honed the block, cleaned everything up, sized the pistons up and made sure everything was going to work. They did a really awesome job. And then I brought the block home and built it from there with the SuperTech high compression pistons and the forged eagle connecting rods. Got my European intake manifold. This is from a Escort 1.8 Turbo XR3i. And my main reason for getting that manifold was not necessarily that it flowed any better. It might, I'm honestly not sure. I didn't check any of the specs. But the real reason for me getting that was so I could put the supercharger underneath the intake manifold on the side of the engine. That way everything sat underneath the hood in the engine bay. Also, while doing this build, I kept on trying to find parts that would make it as unique as possible. I was able to find these really cool, original, brand new in-box Ford Racing adjustable cam gears made by Esslinger, and a Esslinger crank pulley as well that was actually the exact same color, so it matches those pulleys really nice. So I've had this car for about 3 years now. I have moved twice in that time since I have picked it up, and in the last move, it's pretty similar to the state that the car is in now, and that was a nightmare to move. So if I ever move again, this car is going to be done before we do that, because moving a half-assembled car on a trailer is not much fun. And then immediately after we got in here, I got the RX-8 transmission. This is a 5-speed transmission that they got in Japan, because Japan gets all the good stuff. In the United States, we only got a 6-speed in the RX-8. I was lucky to find a company based out of Florida that had actually imported a bunch of these 5-speed RX-8 transmissions from Japan. Now, I do like the 5-speed compared to the 6-speed more. I prefer the gearing ratios over the 6-speed. First and second are always so close, they almost seem pointless to me. But aside from that, I don't really have too much complaints about the 6-speed. The main reason, however, for me getting the 5-speed is that the 5 speeds were built stronger than the 6-speed, and I wanted this thing to hold as much power as I possibly could. With everything that I built the engine for, I built it to withstand about 500 horsepower. Of course, you don't build an engine up to those horsepower goals, so with this engine I am aiming for about 300, 350 to the wheels, somewhere around there. So the power output that this engine is going to be making is going to be much lower than the engine is built for, so I don't think we'll have any issues there. So I was able to get the RX-8 transmission bolted up to the engine with the Clutch Masters Stage 2.5 clutch. And that pretty much brings us to where I started off with our first installment video of Project XR2 SuperCoupe. Well, I hope you enjoyed this installment on the history of XR2 SuperCoupe. I hope you stay tuned and watch more videos that we have to come as I continue with this project. Don't forget to join us at Focus in the Field September 4th through 6th. If you want information on that, please shoot me a PM. I will get you the details on that. DTF is a big sponsor of Focus in the Field, along with the Midwest group Focus Extreme. Don't forget to check out our website, DTF Garage, and as always, stay boosted. That's from my point of view. I'm gonna do it from your point of view. Yeah, that looks better. Time to crack open a cold one. Oh, sideways, that's why.